So the first thing that was interesting to me is you made a very, very broad statement, um,
Hmm.
which I took to be, and I may be misquoting you as being too broad. So maybe I should just ask you, like, what would be the simplest statement of your of this conclusion? What is like if I was going to paraphrase back what I thought I heard, it was basically usury is the root of all human ills. But that seems very broad, so I don't want to, I'd love for you to kind of define, um, uh, first of all, what are all the problems? What is the range of problems that stem from usury? And then maybe you can describe what usury is, because I think I have an idea of what it is, but I'd love it if we'd work with your definition.
Right. Um, well, so I'll answer that backwards. Usury is kind of like pornography in that
Okay.
um, you know it when you see it type of thing. And that's
Hmm.
not to say there's not that's not to say there isn't a very strict definition. It's just that it
Yeah.
sounds nuanced. And
Okay.
the reason it's nuanced is because of the complexities involved in
Okay.
of people trying to avoid doing it, or at least trying to
Hmm.
avoid. It's such an unpopular thing
Okay.
that where like every man hates it, and every intellectual, like literally throughout all of history, people have always hated usury. That's why it's not talked about, because they understand it destroys everything thoroughly, as
Okay.
badly as you can destroy something. And
Okay.
so and it doesn't have that appeal that other sins might have that make them easier to digest, like, for
Okay.
instance, sodomy.
Yeah.
Sodomy, which is often compared in the moral theologians to usury,
Hmm.
can has this appeal because if you think that the marital act is like if you have any kind of misunderstanding of the way the human body is meant to be used,
Hmm.
then it's easy to see the conclusion that pleasure is good, and so therefore sodomy is acceptable, or it doesn't create any kind of, like you have to have these philosophical understandings before it's just easier to justify sodomy than it is to justify usury. Nobody thinks it's good. It's such a unnatural thing. Um,
Okay.
but it's basically profiting. It's using money twice and profiting off of it. And
Okay.
so the easiest way, the most practical definition, if you're like, well, am I committing usury, which is not the
Yeah.
most important question. Um, but the practical definition is if you're profiting through interest off of a human necessity, so like housing, food, um, even
Hmm.
something that's just a situational necessity, so
Right.
that somebody is kind of like forced to take this loan. The morality requires you to give that loan without making profit out of it.
Okay.
If you try to profit off of it, you're now sterilizing the human race. um,
And
so
so if, like, let's say a businessman takes out a loan to start his business, but it's not a
it's not
hardship for
usury.
him, that's not usury. But if
No,
somebody is paying a mortgage for their primary residence, that's usury.
probably.
Okay.
Like almost definitely. I've never heard of a mortgage. I mean, like a zero interest loan or something like that wouldn't be usury.
Sure.
But the important thing to understand is that, well, okay, so let me tell you how it connects to human ills.
Yeah.
Is, as you said it, is the first thing I want to understand is, or the first thing I want to say is, hello, wife, how are you? Ah, okay.
Keep going. I'm just
Sun, sunflower seeds.
on my notepad here so I
Yeah,
can
sure.
scribble some stuff down.
I got distracted.
Yeah.
So it's not that every human ill stems from usury.
Mhm.
There are there are a natural evils and there are natural evils like a
Mhm.
tornado,
Okay.
um, or an animal attacking somebody is a natural evil.
Uh-huh.
And then there are kind of like artificial evils where somebody has sinned against you. So
Yeah.
theft, for instance. But the reason why usury is the one problem that has to do with all the human ills is
Hmm.
because, and it is the thing on, it's like it is the, if we get rid of it, it will solve things so thoroughly that
Hmm.
any problem anybody has in their life right now will be fundamentally different and easier to, it just won't hurt them
Yeah.
in in a way that's totally unacceptable if usury is gone, is because
Mhm.
usury, and you can already understand this from my definition, usury magnifies and profits off of all human ill. That's what it's designed to do. It's profit off of the fact that somebody needs a house. It's anything, not just ills, but needs and
Yeah.
wants, all these things, all these
Yeah.
things. Because, like, okay, if a businessman takes out a loan to start his business, is that usury? Well, it might be. It might be. It's like
Okay.
if I have to, now he's a victim of usury. That's the
Mhm.
thing. He's not the sinner.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
I mean,
understand. That's what I understand. Yeah.
well, it's important because Muslims oversimplify it.
Okay.
Uh, and that's also very interesting because the Muslims understand usury on a very practical level. In fact, the main reason why Mohammedanism prospered as a heresy was
Hmm.
because of usury, and that's why we still have it 1,500 years later. But that and internecine wars between in Christendom. But um, if a businessman, so what kind of business is he doing? You know what I mean? Like I just talked to a man 2 or 3 days ago, and he said, "Well, the only loan you should have is your house because a house is an asset." Okay, so there are people who take out loans to start a business related to the housing industry. Well, they're involved in usury and they're being victimized, and they're also victimizing others through it. Well,
Hmm.
if I cannot participate in normal buying and selling without purchasing a vehicle,
Hmm.
which is basically what it's basically the way that the world works, especially in America. I mean, in
Yeah.
Europe and many other parts of the world, you could survive without a vehicle. But America, thanks to Henry Ford, who I think regretted it, you need a vehicle. And then usury has made it so that it's just very difficult to get a reliable, workable vehicle
Hmm.
without taking a loan. So people often take a business loan, purchase a vehicle. Well, they're a victim of usury. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
and that's where it gets very nuanced. That's where it gets extremely nuanced.
Hmm.
And it helps, especially Catholics have this problem. If you don't pay attention to personal sin, it's like it's not important to figure out if somebody has sinned. It's not that important unless you're a confessor in a confessional.
Hmm.
It's not as lay people, as just normal man, especially dealing with people who don't have the same religion.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you should be thinking hard about whether somebody sinned. It just doesn't matter.
Hmm.
What matters is the suffering and the evils people are under and
Hmm.
the way it relates to virtue, especially the virtue of justice. So justice is giving to somebody what they deserve. That's what it is. It's giving to them what they're due. And so everybody is due life in such a way that you don't have to struggle every single day just to pay to continue to live. You know what I mean? Like you can see this in the Old Testament, especially if you look into Jubilee. Jubilee had a lot to do with forgiving debt, but it had to do with other things too. It had to do with housing. It had to do with community. It had to do with tribe. It had to do with your family. And when the Jubilee happened every 70 years, you went back to your father's land. And so there was this transmission of inheritance. And that was how basically, now that law doesn't apply in the same way anymore because we're not one nation. The church is is a yeast spread throughout the whole world. It's not genealogical anymore. But there was this security that God clearly cared about, where a man is born and has an inheritance that will provide for him. You know what I mean? And that's like you see things like communism coming about to solve capitalism and picks up on this, that everybody deserves a security from society. Now,
Sure.
God can intervene with that. God can send tornadoes, but that's not the same thing as like every day you have to work as hard as you can away from your family just to justify that you are living.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Cool.
sorry for
Thank you.
preaching.
I'm I don't perceive it as preaching, right? You've got but um
I'm just loose at 9 p.m. I did this to
yeah.
Mr. Watkins too. God forgive me.
Um cool. So I feel like I understand your point of view on usury. I I hear you saying there's a lot of nuance to it, but fundamentally I and this is I think like a soundbite that I think would maybe be useful and maybe a little bit clickbait, to sell this interview, and like when I title this episode, I might title it "Usury Destroys Everything," because you said it destroys everything, and I like the simplicity of that. And I know there's a lot more nuance that you're bringing to it, but in general, you're saying like much of the suffering of man in society is based on people profiting off other people's need. And it
Well,
sounds
it's
like,
gone on.
yeah.
Sorry, you already understand it.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, if
God
that's
bless you.
if I'm not far off, then if I'm far off, then tell me. But I think that's kind of and what I'm intentionally trying to kind of make it simple enough so that we can then kind of put that on the shelf and then just talk about the reasons and not so much talk about that anymore. And I sort of feel like that's
Well,
the soundbite version of it. But
well,
tell me what I'm getting wrong, because when we get to the reasons, it may deal with the nuance. So,
right.
um, are
Well,
you
what
are
I
you
told
comfortable? Yeah,
Good. What I told you is I'm a
yeah,
novelist. So, like, if I disagree with you, sometimes it's not because I think you're wrong. Sometimes because I
yeah,
think it's just a way of progressing the plot through conflict. Um,
sure. Yeah, and don't and so let's. What I want to do now is kind of move into the area where I talk more about. I'm going to ask about your level of confidence, because there
can
are
I can
philosophers.
I just add one thing to this explanation that I left out?
Sure.
The general explanation
Yeah.
is the one aspect that people have to understand that I think is intuitive, but
Hmm.
if you think about it for a long time, you can start to understand the implications, is
Yeah.
that usury works over time.
Yeah.
And so that's why, for instance, all the human ills and all the things are affected by usury. It's not because that happens automatically. It's because this problem started 400 years ago and has
Mm-hmm.
not stopped. And so it's
Okay.
just progressed to a certain point. It might be
Yeah.
like 100 years ago that it wouldn't have been like this, even though usury was going on. But
Hmm.
now it's one. It's one in every area. So
Okay.
that's the people guilty are dead 300 years. It's my opinion.
So you say this happened. Sorry, I'm gonna jump back into that, because you say this
Sure.
started 400 years ago. Doesn't the Bible, which is 2,000 years old, have prohibitions against usury?
Yeah, 400 years ago. So that it has a lot to do with the breaking up of Christendom
Uh-huh.
under Protestant Reformation. Not
Okay.
because every Protestant is the cause of every problem. It's because when that happened, there was no longer a central authority
Hmm.
recognized that always trounced usury. So, like in a kingdom, a
Yeah.
king doesn't matter how rich people are. A king can
Hmm.
just say, "No, all debts are forgiven. I don't care what he owes you," and that happened continually. throughout history. Kings
Oh,
were
so
like
you're
the people who
saying you're saying what happened 400 years ago was the end of Jubilee.
Yeah, basically. Well, it's because of English history. It's
Uh-huh.
because I mean it's a very complex history. But England
Yeah.
broke away from the church. Usury started happening, and
Mm.
over time, the English kings were not. There was revolutions. There was the Glorious Revolution, stuff like that. A lot of
Yeah.
that. There's the Bank of England. A lot of
Okay.
that had to do with usury. The Pope, because he is not a genealogical inheritor of his kingdom, it's just
Yeah.
structured differently, was a very effective control on this
Okay.
problem.
So would you, and that's making me wonder if you are equating not in a definitional sense, but in a chronological sense, are you equating usury with capitalism?
Yes,
Okay. Cool.
definitely, definitely.
Excellent.
I hate
Good.
capitalism. I've been trying to write a book about how bad capitalism is
Yeah.
and how bad conservatism is, and
Mm.
all of my American friends really hate me because they don't hate me, but they think that conservatism means people that have morals, and capitalism means people that like to trade goods for money. That's not what it means. And
Yeah.
atheists know this. Atheists know this. This is what they know.
Yeah.
They know so much about this. Communism is way better than capitalism. That's my personal opinion. I think
Okay.
it's way better.
We could
It's
that
evil. It's not good.
that's yeah. I'm gonna write that one down too.
Yeah, I might be burned alive for saying that, but I'll defend it. I mean, it's just I've
Yeah.
made this point. It's like, I would much rather live under Islam
Hmm.
than under the American hegemony because
Hmm.
Islam gives you a
Yeah.
simple thing. It's like, okay, if you're not going to be Islamic, maybe they tax you, maybe they kill you. Well, it's a
Yeah.
win-win. It's martyrdom. I mean, St. Louis got this, but a lot of Catholic saints went to the Muslim countries for that reason. It's such a simple thing to approach.
Yeah.
But Americanism confuses you and sucks your soul out of a television screen. You
Yeah.
know? And you don't even know you're going to hell until you die and you find God and he clears all these things up for you. It's terrible. The one saving thing about it is there's probably a lot of people who have what I think is called invincible ignorance
Hmm.
because of the confusion created by
Okay.
capitalism.
Interesting. Okay. Cool.